What's going on, YouTube? It is getting hot here in Phoenix. It was like 96 degrees today. So I went out and I bought myself a swamp cooler for the shop. Now usually in the past, to deal with the heat, I would just weld in the nude. But since I'm doing the YouTube videos now, I don't want you seeing my junk. And the money I save in burn ointment should pay for this cooler. Of course I tease, but I do weld naked. Anyway, if anybody's not familiar with the swamp cooler, you guys that live in the really moist environments, especially overseas, things like that, instead of air conditioning, this is a big fan that basically pumps water through some sort of media. In this case, it's straw pads or filters. Those go all around the outside here. Runs water through those, pulls air through the wet pad, and then blows it into the shop at a high rate of speed. Only works in arid environments. Here in the summertime, like in August, it'll get pretty humid during our monsoon season. And basically all I'm going to get out of this thing is the fan. I'll run it with the fan on and the pump off. And it also, even when it's cold, I'll use it to ventilate when I'm welding or using some sort of chemicals, things like that. So let me get started. I've already got it's going in this wall right here. I'm doing a wall mount, and I'll tell you why. Over a decade ago, before I bought this house, there was a cooler on the roof, and it did this. Now, I would maintain it pretty good. The last people did not, and this is what happens when you don't maintain a cooler. It overflows and it leaks for years, and it destroys your roof. Here, this is my skylight. That's where the cooler used to be. I haven't patched that yet. So I'm putting mine on the wall. Easier to maintain. Once I put a new roof on, I won't have to get up there at all because the cooler will be down here. Here's the base for it. So out here in the yard, the cooler's going to sit on that. I put plastic and gravel under it so the weeds won't grow because I can't mow under it. So let me start chopping up my garage, and I'll take you with me while I do it. Alright, first thing I did, I put the whole thing, it's pretty heavy, I put the whole thing on a dolly so I can roll it around. This cooler comes complete with the exception of the motor. So it comes with the pads already installed in the vents. Now I had to buy the motor for it and install it. Now you can use, this is a 4100 CFM unit. You can use a 1/3 horsepower or a 1/2 horse. And of course, being a caveman, I went with the big one. I bought the 1/2 horse. That's going to blow considerably more CFM out of this thing. Not considerably, but more. So I got that mounted. Mounts on these two little brackets. No big deal. And then you put the pulley on the motor. I had to shim it a little bit. It comes with those. Got the belt connecting the motor to the pulley on the motor to the pulley on the fan, the squirrel cage. You take your float where you connect the water, and I'll show you that when I hook it up. And I put the float and screwed it on. That's real easy. And then down to the electrical. It comes with two plugs. Now one is going to be for the pump and one is for the fan. And they're selective. You can do different things with them. You can also run 20. You can run 120 or 220 volt. I'm doing 120 because it's just the way I'm going to do it. It was easier for me to hook it up that way. So you pop these into here, and once you bring your seal tight into the side of this, and I'll show you that. Once you tie your incoming power in, your line power into the cooler, you hook up the load side here, and then the motor and the pump just plug right into it. You just get the cables up out of the water and plug it in. It really doesn't matter because this whole thing, it's going to be raining in here. You can see that spider up there that sprays into the pads. Everything in here gets pretty damp, so it's all rated for that. All right, let me finish tinkering with this thing, and we're going to cut a hole. One more quick thing. It doesn't come with the diffuser that sticks out of the cooler. So I had my man Caesar knock that up for me on our lunch hour. Took him no time at all. Those can you can get all kinds of different configurations to tie them into the ductwork in your house. I'm just blowing this straight in, so that's all it needed. Be right back. Okay, we're holy. Got some framing in the way. We'll deal with that. All right, there she is framed in. Now I had to kind of interrupt that center stud there. I had to cut it out to fit this diffuser for the blower into the garage wall. So I just kind of, you cut it and you brace across, and then you set studs underneath the brace to carry the weight, because this wall is holding up the garage. So you just want to take care when you do that. This is a load bearing wall. It's not that big of a deal because everything is supported so close together. So the one on either side of it held it just fine when I was cutting it, but I did put it back nice and strong. So you just want to keep that in mind. On to the next step. All right, one thing I got to do real quick. I'm not going to add any additional ductwork. So this piece that's sticking out, I'm just going to cut that flat and then make basically a safety grill for it, so nobody sticks their hand in there and gets eaten alive. Let me do that real quick. All right, I just ran an angle head grinder with a cutting wheel across that, nice and clean. Took less than a minute. Cut it like butter. Now what I'm going to do, I got some free dog kennels off Craigslist, bunch of them. I'm just going to sacrifice one panel off of one of them and make the safety cover. Alright, well that was easy enough. Little piece of that dog kennel. I just Romex stapled it on there. Let me show you how I hooked it up. Inside anyway, then I'll take you outside. So cooler switch. It's got the pump only, the high cool, low cool, high vent, low vent. That'll run it with or without water going through the media. I'll show you that outside in a minute. That runs up. One thing I did do is I hooked this up 220. I was going to do the 120, but of course if you, the higher the voltage, the lower it runs in the amperage, and that costs less money to run. So I did the 220. That was just a matter of switching from a 12-2 conductor to a 12-3 for the 20 amp circuit, and that's run down the garage over to the panel. The other change I had to make was, instead of a single pole 20 amp breaker, I changed it to a 2-pole 20 amp. That gives it the 240. So that means that I have two hots and a ground that runs that motor instead of a hot, neutral, and ground. Of course, you still have to run a neutral. That's why the 12-3. You still have to run a neutral to the cooler so it can run the 120 pump, and that's it. So two hots and a neutral and a bare ground. And I'll show you that inside. Kind of interesting. Alright, there's the power coming out of the garage. It's seal tight. Goes into the cooler. And there's where it hooks up. Now I won't get into the wiring. If you can't handle the wiring yourself, I suggest you use an expert. If you're kind of on your own with that one, liability stuff, But this is the basics of how it works. The sump fills up with water, which I have on a float here. Stays full all the time. If it overflows, it goes through that overflow. But anyway, the pump pumps the water up. It goes through that little network of spider tubing down into the cooler pads. You can kind of see it dripping down there. You can see how it works. And then the fan pulls air through the wet pad into the garage. Oh, here's the water, by the way. Ran around back there in that poly tube, and I just saddle tapped it onto my existing outside shower, which I have to move because the cooler's in the way now. So anyway, how it works, instead of air conditioning that recirculates the air, this flips the air over. It keeps pumping in fresh, moist air from the outside, and you have to run it with something open. What I do is I close that garage door, and when the garage door is closed, it has vents. I gotta move my chair. I keep the garage shut, and it keeps flipping the air over and pushing it out through the top there. Keeps it nice and cool. When the exterior wet bulb and all that kind of things, when the conditions are just right, the humidity, it will easily keep this garage 25 degrees cooler than the outside. And if you're if you're not familiar with swamp coolers and you're thinking, why didn't I just put an air conditioner on here? This is why. I would have to insulate this whole garage in order to make air conditioning a cost effective, and I don't want to do that. So we're doing the swamp. So there you go. If I was kind of vague on anything, please feel free to, even with the electrical, feel free to give me a PM or a comment, and I'll see what I can do for you. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, YouTube.